Welcome to Emotions and Eating with Nicola-beer. Nicola controlled her feelings using food for 25 years, so she knows how draining it is to be constantly thinking about or acting out with food. Thankfully, having made an amazing breakthrough in her recovery, her mission became about helping others escape the unsatisfying cycle of frustration and self-medication with food. Nicola is determined to help you find your inner strength so you can be healthy, gain confidence, feel great, and be at peace with yourself and food.
Hi and welcome. I'm so happy you're here. I'm going to be sharing today about the signs and symptoms of body dysmorphia, BDD. So how can you tell the difference between someone who doesn't like something about their body and someone suffering with BDD? It's a good question, and most of us probably have a few things we would love to change about our appearance. The main difference is the mental and emotional obsession. If you have body dysmorphic disorder, then you won't be able to stop obsessing about the way that you look. For some people, this can last several hours or even an entire day, and they will be obsessed with thinking about their body part or planning and scheming what they're going to do about it. Have you ever decided you wanted to lose weight so much that you tell yourself, or maybe you try to show yourself, that you are fat? Does this, then, body part that you hate become a big issue, and you find yourself thinking about that, or how you can overcome it with diets and weight loss products? So you get preoccupied and it infiltrates your daily thinking, right? Have you done that? Well, this is the same for body dysmorphic sufferers. It may not be connected to fat, but they will spend time worrying about it or scheming ways to change it, and most likely getting any kind of counselling or treatment will be last on the list. Instead, they will look for solutions to change their body, or hide their body, or to avoid social events. It becomes challenging because it is hard to switch off from, and it will dampen their mood. Other times they may feel a temporary relief if they have a plan for extreme dieting, avoiding social interactions, or surgery. Either way, it's an obsession. People with body dysmorphic disorder will find it difficult to control their obsessions, and this is why it can limit their social life, affect their eating habits, and distract them from work, school, or other activities that they need to focus on. It will, of course, unavoidably lead to low self-esteem and a low mood, which can have an impact on all areas of life. Many body dysmorphia sufferers will perform some type of compulsive or repetitive behaviour in an attempt to provide or improve their flaws. Although these behaviours usually give only temporary relief, which is why body dysmorphic disorder often gets linked to obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, and eating disorders. So if any of this is ringing true for you, if you'd like to know the signs of body dysmorphic disorder, then that's what I'm going to be sharing with you right now. The first one is camouflaging. And this is where the BDD sufferer will go to great lengths to hide their perceived flaws. For example, they may hide parts of their body under clothing all the time. They may sit or stand or look at people from a certain angle. They may use makeup, hair, wigs, hats to cover up parts of their body. Now, whilst most women wear makeup, the difference with body dysmorphia is that there'll be a real fear that part of their body will be exposed. And for the men that I help, they often use clothing to disguise their body parts. For example, with a man I helped who hated his stomach so much that he could not put on the light when he went showering, he went swimming, he always had to keep a t-shirt on, even with his close family and even when he was on holiday abroad. He couldn't relax. The second sign is constant comparing of a body part to other people's body parts. In the online support that I do, I always ask someone who and what they are comparing themselves with. I do this when I help people to change their eating patterns if they've got bulimia or anorexia or any other kind of social anxiety. I say to them, are you comparing yourself to anyone else? What are you saying to yourself? And most are always comparing themselves either to their friends, their family members, especially brothers and sisters, and also sometimes they compare themselves to younger versions of themselves, fitter versions of themselves. And it's always done with the purpose of putting oneself down, in an effort to highlight how big they see their problem and flaw is. So this is definitely a sign. Do you compare yourself to others? The next sign is surgery. Those with body dysmorphic disorder are highly likely to seek cosmetic surgery. And sadly, often one surgery is rarely enough. And this is when an addiction to cosmetic surgery begins, because one is often only the beginning. In fact, this is what breaks my heart about cosmetic surgery addiction. People change themselves and change themselves and change themselves and lose touch with who they really are, their soul, their heart, their personality. It makes me think of Michael Jackson. Look how far he went to change himself, bless him. It can be difficult to know when people seek surgery if it's an act of self-love or if it's body dysmorphia in disguise. And counselling to talk it through can help. To question and to ask yourself, am I doing this for the right reasons? And is this going to be enough? The next sign is mirrors. Those with BDD may constantly check themselves in the mirror all the time, as they are preoccupied with how they look. Or they may do the opposite. They may avoid using mirrors altogether. Just like the man I mentioned earlier. When we started working together, he could not look at himself in the mirror. Other people may choose to cover mirrors and avoid looking at their reflection in shopping malls. It can be body dysmorphia, and it can also be the effect of an eating disorder too, seeing yourself as disgusting if you want to avoid mirrors. Then there's grooming. Excessive grooming is also common. Spending hours to get ready, even for a day, that has nothing particular important in at all, even if it's just going to work, because they cannot be seen without this grooming ritual. And then there's excessive exercise, just like purging behaviour with eating disorders, where they do more than recommended amounts and push their bodies to limits. And lastly, there's changing clothing. Some people will feel uncomfortable in their clothes and find themselves changing their clothes excessively and repeatedly, again and again. And so with those last few, that really directly relates to the same symptoms and signs of eating disorders. There's a lot of parallels between body dysmorphia and eating disorders, as you can probably see. Maybe you can relate to them. And maybe you're listening to this thinking, God, maybe this does apply to me. If you had asked me if I had body dysmorphia before I studied it, I would have said, no, I don't have that. However, once I read the signs and symptoms, and once I began to look into it and start learning ways to help people with it, I realised that yes, I probably had it for many years, and it was definitely linked to my eating disorders. The reason I would have said no was because whilst I was thin, I could see that I was thin, and yet most of the time I could still see some fat in areas where there were none. I've always had an issue with my stomach, to be honest. It's larger than the rest of my body, it's slightly out of proportion. For many years, every single time I went to the toilet, I would show myself my stomach and push it out in front of the mirror. I'd tell myself, you're fat, your stomach is so fat, it's disgusting. I would not allow any man to touch my stomach area or go near it. I couldn't stand it. I would also not allow any man to touch my stomach area or go near it. I couldn't stand it. It would make me want to recoil and run away when they went near it, even if I really liked them. I couldn't bear acknowledging my stomach was there and part of me. I used to hit it, push it in, and hurt myself by showing myself every time that I was front of a mirror how bad it was. I used to lift up my top and show myself my stomach. Anytime I went to the bathroom that had one of those mirrors where you could look in and see yourself. Was this body dysmorphia? Well, it certainly was obsessive looking back. Knowing what I do now, absolutely, yes, it was. I was definitely showing the signs of someone who has BDD. It would take up hours of my time. I'd excessively exercise and diet to get rid of it. I'd look at it, obsess about it, sometimes even punch it, and feel hatred towards it. And then there were other thoughts I had about my body, which used to occupy my mind. Thoughts like, I have a double chin, I have fat under my arms, I have chubby cheeks, I have bags under my eyes, I have horrible hair, cellulite. And this used to get to me until I began my journey of self-love and acceptance. It didn't happen overnight, as the disgust and fear of fat was so strong. I was so used to consistently bullying myself, and therefore it took a lot of practice to change. But I did get there in the end, and you can too. Thanks to the self-love program I created, my thoughts have lessened and I no longer limit my life. And I'm so pleased that I learned more about body dysmorphia because I've been able to start helping people with it, and I'm able to catch myself if I have negative thoughts about my body. I did a lot of work to stop the binge, starve and purge cycle, and I thankfully no longer see my body as fat. And I have to monitor my thinking and just make sure that I right size it, because otherwise it can go to thoughts about my hair, my wrinkles, my teeth, anything. Before, I used to get caught up in thoughts. I'd dream about changing or fixing my issue, whether that was with a diet, excessive exercise, regime, surgery, dentist, surgery. I'd think about it and I'd plan from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed. I'd be constantly checking in the mirror and asking myself, what am I going to do about these defects? I'd say I have to do something about it. And whilst I was waiting for the change, I feel less motivated to see people or to go to social gatherings. I'd want to wait until I had fixed the issue before I saw everyone. So in some ways I became a prisoner in my own home. And that's why I can really understand and relate the link between body dysmorphia and social anxiety. A lot of people, they do stop socialising. And I think eating disorders are also heavily linked to social anxiety, where we feel, well, when I'm the perfect weight, I'll see people. Or when I can get into this piece of clothing, then I'll go out. And this makes us a real prisoner and it can keep us trapped. The day I discovered I had body dysmorphia, and have probably had it all my whole life, was a real special moment for me. Suddenly to me, everything made sense, and I felt like crying, tears of both relief and compassion towards myself. I felt relieved because I knew that I knew that this could be changed. I knew that self-love was needed. I knew that I had to let go of the negative way of thinking and I would feel so much better. And I also felt tears of compassion because I didn't choose to have this. I didn't choose to have my eating disorder or disorders. This is something that developed as a coping mechanism to cope with the stress and the challenges I faced early on through my teenage years and as a child. It was my way of adjusting, of managing the difficult emotions that I had. And I discovered, helping myself and helping others, that the only way to cure body dysmorphia is love. And there are 3 parts to this love. The first is self-love. Love for yourself, for these negative and low vibe thoughts about yourself are just your desire to be loved. The obsession is a call for love and a misunderstanding that love is not there, that love is not available when it is available. And having compassion for yourself. You didn't choose to have body dysmorphia. You didn't choose to have eating disorders. You didn't choose to have social anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder. With all of these, they are so often created because of a lack of positive ways of coping with stressful situations. As a child, maybe you went through trauma, maybe there was challenges, there was a difficulty, and you just didn't know how to deal with things. So you turn your lack of control, your fears, your anxiety, your anger, towards yourself, towards your body. You started to attack yourself, you started to hurt yourself, you started to complain and criticize yourself because this is the